toast.
Welcome back! This is a very special episode.
Spend the night in a coffin.
Lily! Lily!
The faster you breathe, the faster you use up your air, so you can't panic.
We have ourselves a winner!
Play or die! Play or die!
No.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. It's your Halloween hangover episode. Joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom? How are you?
Greetings and salutations, videotape rewinders. And always remember to rewind your videotapes before you return them to the store. Oh, wait a minute. What year is this again? Whatever. How you doing, Mike? I'm doing pretty well.
Pretty good. And, it's not so important that this is like a later episode, but I just wanted to mention it because now that we actually have somewhat of a listenership on YouTube that might be expecting like episodes on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It's just a little later this week because of the holiday plans around, the end of October and Halloween just pushed it out a couple days. But next episode, we should be back to our regular scheduling time and release schedule. I'm going to have to dive into the analytics somehow and figure out like how people are finding the episodes on YouTube. If it's like people that click the YouTube link in the post, or just people randomly found it based on like typing in the name of a movie they want to hear reviews on, because I have no idea, honestly.
I would say that's going to be I'd say that's going to be the highest probability, because that's how I find these videos. When a new movie comes out, once I watch it, I might want to watch a couple of reviews. I've got a couple of reviewers on YouTube that I'm kind of loyal to. And but yeah, I'll look up the movie. I won't look up the channel. So I think most people are probably looking up the movie.
That's what I think too. And like we do have like a few dozen subscribers, so that is cool. Like obviously, like I'm not concerned at this point with like, oh, how are we gonna make it grow and all that, because like I pointed out a few times, YouTube was really just a secondary option. But hey, if I see like viewership or subs start to like slowly grow, like maybe over the next 6-8 months, and maybe then I'll be like, okay, what else can I do to like enhance the YouTube channel? But for now, it's just kind of an alternate place. But also joining us, yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like that's the other issue. It's like how much time and effort do I want to put into it, because it takes away from my other free time that I don't have a ton of. And
how much time and effort can you take away from introducing me, you dickwad?
I'm gonna actually take a couple more minutes to do it. Yeah, yeah. If I see that it's worth putting the time and effort to, like if I think there's a demand for it, I'll figure something out. But as of now, I mean, it's not really necessary. But you probably heard the voice of Don and Ellie, the other regular co-host. So how's it going, Don?
Yeah, doing good. Getting the Halloween hangover cured, and getting ready to get on with the rest of the year.
Cool. All right. Well, our first movie out post Halloween to discuss is now streaming on Shudder. It is this is the fifth, yeah. Fifth entry in the franchise, and wouldn't you know, a sixth entry has technically already been announced, but more on that later, maybe at the end. But this would be VHS 99. previously VHS 94 was the latest, and I know me and Venom really liked it. Don, you were what? Mostly positive on it?
No, I was right behind you guys. I think I was probably lukewarm on the last episode, and that was the one that dragged me down. Mm-hmm. But yeah, overall, I was right there behind you guys.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think, without the aid of rewatching all of them and really kind of analyzing it.
And,
I was going to say, like...
I still haven't seen 2 and 3 yet, but...
Oh, shit, that's right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that was... VHS 94 is probably my second favorite. But like I said, I'd have to rewatch them all, especially the first.
I can tell you right now... for those who don't know, who don't follow me on Facebook, I actually did a found footage challenge for October this year. I watched 31 found footage movies, a mix between old favorites and some new ones as well that I'd never seen before. And I rewatched the first 4 VHS movies. And upon rewatching them, my ranking now has changed. VHS 2 is no longer my favorite VHS movie. It is solidly VHS 94. I had such a good time watching it this time. And I watched them, I literally watched them back to back to back, not on the same day, but on consecutive days. So over 5 consecutive days, I watched all 5 VHS movies. And yeah, 94 is the one that brings me the most joy, the most excitement. I still love every single segment. Like, that's the only VHS movie that I actually love every single, segment. We talked about the last segment, the vampire segment, being maybe one of the weaker ones, but I still absolutely loved it. I thought it was a good time, especially because of the politics, around that segment and the group that, was holding this vampire, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, after watching them all, 94 is king for me. Timo's segment, I could watch that on a loop for 6 hours straight, and it'll bring me just as much joy in the first hour as it will in the 6th hour. That segment is just so spectacular. And I stand by my statement. It is my favorite, horror anthology segment of all time. Nothing comes close. So there you go.
Wow. All right.
I'm sorry, Mike. I had actually forgotten how silly the ending of Safe Haven was. Like, Safe Haven is my favorite segment in VHS 2, but I totally forgot how silly that monster looks when he's coming out. It kind of made me chuckle.
All right. Well, with that, let's find out how well VHS 99 holds up. Synopsis: witness a hellish vision of 1999 as social isolation, analog technology, and disturbing home videos fuse into a nightmare of found footage savagery. All right, hell of a synopsis there, I guess. Venom, we'll kick it off with general thoughts. What did you think of VHS 1999?
Well, going into this movie, especially having watched the previous 4, the 4 days before, I honestly thought that VHS had kind of learned their lesson and that VHS Viral would kind of go down as the worst one ever. It pains me to say, folks, no, VHS 99 is now the worst in the franchise. I don't think I enjoyed one story here. They all had cool elements, like, there's gore and most of them. We even get some cool Lovecraftian stuff in 1 or 2 of the segments, but overall, I just did not have a good time watching this movie. First of all, the wraparound is ridiculous, if not the most entertaining thing in the movie, because it is so ridiculous. Basically a kid playing with his toy soldiers, but it was kind of funny at first, but then they give up on the wraparound. Like, after the 3rd segment, there is no more wraparound. The stories just kind of go right into each other. So I don't know. I don't know why they ran out of wraparound to use, but and then the way that the wraparound ends with the older douchey brother posing in the mirror, just a lot of this movie really bothered me. Obviously, we'll talk about this segment by segment in our spoiler-filled conversation, but honestly, I can't really point at any one segment here. I think Ozzy's Dungeon, maybe. That was the one with the game show. Just because it was different, because, that segment starts out a certain way. It seems like it's going to be, you know, a parody of Double Dare from the 90s, but then it goes a completely different route about halfway through the segment. And I ended up enjoying the end of that one, mainly because it does have a very Lovecraftian type ending, but I still struggle to find elements of all the segments to really get behind. And I think my biggest complaint is going to be that almost every segment in this movie, 4 out of the 5 segments have a young cast. You're talking high school and college-aged people in 4 out of the 5 segments. And then the only segment that doesn't have, you know, any ultra young people in it, or at least where they're not a big part of the story, would be the last one, To Hell and Back. And that whole segment, I'm just like, what the fuck is this derivative, you know, just pedantic hell, you know, vision of hell that I'm being shown? Like, this is the most cut and dry, color by numbers vision of hell I've ever seen. Like I said, folks, this chapter in the VHS franchise for me has taken a little bit of a dip. Actually, it's taken a giant dip, because we're going from my favorite one in 94 to now my least favorite in 99. And I can confidently say that, because like I said, I rewatched Viral. I actually came up a little bit on Viral. The Spanish segment I really, really enjoyed. The first segment with the cloak, I know, is the one that a lot of people have contention with. I didn't hate it as much this time around. So yeah, I kind of warmed up on Viral, whereas I watched this entry 3 fucking times in the hopes that I would warm up to it. And I just found myself getting frustrated, more and more frustrated on every watch. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to have a lot of great things to say about VHS 99, but ultimately I am a found footage and anthology horror fan. So of course I'm going to watch it, and I would still recommend it to people like me who are fans of found footage and anthology horror. But all I would say is, you know, curb your expectations. We're not getting VHS 94 with this one. That's it for general thoughts.
All right, I'll move it over to Dawn. General thoughts on VHS 99.
Yeah, I'm kind of right where Venom is. This one's not good. I don't know where my rankings would be, because like I said, I haven't seen 2 and 3 yet, and I've seen 1 once, and it was bad enough to put me off the rest of the franchise. So I don't have a lot of familiarity with the franchise. I mean, 94 is awesome, like we've been saying, but yeah, the segments in here are pretty terrible. Just go real quickly. Part 1 has a decent concept at its heart, but there's not a lot going on elsewhere. And it kind of is ruined by the one fundamental flaw in a lot of found footage films. Why the fuck are you filming this? Part 2, actually, this one was my favorite of the series. I actually really like this one. Great idea, nice concept, some solid jump scares, cool imagery. Again, why the hell are they filming this? And some of the camera angles just look like they were specifically being filmed. Like, why would you purposely drag a camera angle to capture that? Kind of ruins the illusion for that one a little bit, but not enough for me to really downgrade that one too much. Third one, just why was this included? Fuck this shit. Fourth one, there's nudity, so at least that one's better, but same general thoughts on that. And the last segment, I actually didn't mind this one. Again, why are you filming this shit? But yeah, I actually really liked a lot of the visuals in this one. Some decent ideas, kind of bland other than that. But I will say I do like the final twist in that. I thought the twist with that one was actually pretty clever, and I didn't call it coming. So yeah, that one was a fun little surprise. But yeah, other than that, there's just not a lot here that I really liked. I mean, 2 is easily the pick of the litter with these. You know, the third and the fourth ones have no business being here. But yeah, this one was a huge step down, and kind of like where I would rank part 1 as just, yeah, not very good. If I kind of came into this just hearing hype of not actually seeing any of the others, I would be massively disappointed, because yeah, the wraparound with the toys, I actually kind of got a little endeared to them because it was kind of a fun little story. I liked the way that it was playing out, and the voiceovers actually kind of matched, and it was pretty funny. So yeah, that was kind of disappointing that they dropped that, but yeah, overall, not very good.
Okay. As far as I go, I think overall I probably like 99 a little bit more than you guys, but my main issue is for an anthology, it didn't feel like any individual segment hit the highs of like the other installments of the franchise. Like
Yeah,
when it comes to an anthology, yeah, you expect like the highs, lows, mediums, but this one it just kind of felt like an even tone to it all.
2's my favorite, but I would still put everything that I liked in 94 above that one.
Yep.
Yeah, 94 way better. I mean, yeah, it is a little disappointing that coming off like 94, which is arguably the best in the franchise, that they immediately go back down to like a franchise entry that doesn't have any individual.
I do have a thought on that, but I want to keep. I do have a thought on that, but because you guys are more familiar, I want to keep that for spoilers. So definitely remind me about that, because I do have a topic to bring up about that. But I think that's a spoiler. I think that's a spoiler conversation, but I want to bring that back when we get to that section.
Okay. Yeah, what else it's kind of hard with the anthology entries to even say too much until we can get into spoilers, but yeah, I also noticed the same observation as Venom had. It was pretty much all younger cast in this, not a very diverse like POV from like the people going on. I did like the game show segment, just because that one probably cracked me up the most, like from the start.
That's true.
Like,
the first half
cheesy
was funny,
over the top, yeah. The cheesy over the top host. But I also felt like
the game itself wasn't bad. The game itself's not bad, but it's just where it goes, I think, is just kind of really disappointing.
See, I was okay with where it went. I just felt like it dragged. It like took a little long to get where it was going. That was my main issue. Like once we see what the family doing, and once that's established, I felt like what happened at the very end of it should have come way sooner. Like it felt too long for the content of the story. And then man, the other segment, I just felt like everything was just okay. Like this is the one where like if you're marathoning the franchise, fine, I wouldn't have a problem watching it again. But this would never be like my go-to. There's nothing about this one that says, I gotta throw on 99.
I think that's kind of where I would put it too. Is that this shouldn't really be like a standalone recommend. This should only be like a franchise run-through kind of an entry.
Yeah, like if you were, I'll put it this way: like if you were compiling like one VHS movie, let's say 6-7 segments, I don't think I would pick anything from this, even though I don't really dislike any of them. I just don't think anything from them would be picked to go on the best of.
Yeah, no segment in this movie would even be top 10 for VHS, like a top 10 segment, not at all.
Yeah, and like what else? I don't know. It's kind of hard to get any more in depth without spoilers, but I would say watch it. It's on Shudder. If you like the other VHS movies, it's kind of like now that we're 5 into this franchise, it's kind of a matter of like it's really going to come down to personal preference, because you know what you're kind of get in for with these movies, and maybe you'll like them more because there's plenty of people that didn't think 94 was like as good as we did. So it's hard to say, especially when it comes to anthology, because since you're getting 5, anywhere from 4 to 5 actual different mini stories, people could end up liking some of these more or less. So I would still say watch it, check it out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of the positives of this movie is its visuals. I thought the creature design on a lot of the creatures were cool. The punk zombie band, Guillotine, from Suicide Bid, whatever the fuck that creature was at the end of Ozzy'S Dungeon. Like there's some great effects in here, some cool creature designs. The creature from the fourth segment called the Gawkers, I'm not going to say what it is because it's a bit of a spoiler, but that one kind of left me wanting a little bit more. But I was already so checked out of that segment because of the fucking kids. Like the first half of the segment, it's just watching these kids, just being stupid kids. And it's like, I don't understand how this is entertaining, how I'm supposed to be entertained as a movie watcher watching these 15-year-olds run around doing stupid shit. It just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I understand that not every member of a horror audience is going to be my age, so it's not like I'm looking for something necessarily tailored for myself. But when we go back to VHS 94, none of those segments had an ultra young cast, like high school age. You know what I mean? Everybody, and I'm not necessarily saying that has, how can I put it? It's not necessarily a negative. Like, I don't hate things with a youthful cast, not at all. I mean, we praised the Fear Street trilogy, last year, but this one, it was just annoying little shits. It's the annoying kids in the punk band in the first segment. It's the annoying bitches in the sorority in the second segment. It's the annoying family in the third segment, and it's the annoying fucking kids across the street in the fourth segment. It's just a lot of young, just shitty characterizations throughout this movie. Just not a lot for an adult audience to gravitate towards. You know what I mean? So yeah, the other big thing that kind of struck me about this one, 4 of the 5 segments are revenge stories. The first 4 stories in this movie are revenge stories. It's like there's different antagonists in each one and different scenarios and things like that, but they're at their core, all 4 of them are revenge stories. And I thought that was a little repetitive. It's like, give me something else. Give me, like with the first, with the last movie, the last entry in this franchise, we got some cool stuff. We got Ratma in the sewer. We didn't, at least I don't remember any annoying people. The only annoying people from 94 was, the Yahoos, the right-leaning Yahoos in the final segment of 94, but they were still comical to me. Like, I still laughed my ass off because of how just stupid they fucking were. This movie, very little made me laugh. And that's kind of a staple for VHS, is that it does have some a little bit of levity with its comedy. And this one, I don't know, not at all. Like, there were a couple of moments that were funny, I will admit, yes. But from what I would expect from a VHS entry, this one is very lackluster for me. It's there. I'm not going to say that any of the segments are necessarily bad. They're just not up to par with what we got out of 94. I don't even think they're up to par with what we got in Viral. Like I said, after rewatching it, it just, if VHS 94 was a horror anthology film for us adults, then VHS 99 is very much a horror anthology for the Fear Street crowd. And, no offense there. I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm just saying I'm not the audience for VHS 99. And that's too bad, because ultimately, even with a couple of poor entries, this is by far my favorite found footage, franchise. Rec they lost a little bit with the 3rd and 4th entries, but that's a discussion for another show. So from beginning to end, I would say VHS is my favorite found footage and at least still going anthology series. So, but this century, I still can't defend this as much as I'd like to. There's positives. I'm not going to be speaking in all negatives, but the negatives definitely outweigh the positives in this one, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And what is up with VHS and their wraparounds, man? The last 3 VHS wraparounds have been, really fucking odd. They don't even feel like true. 1 and 2 had legit wraparounds where the wraparound itself had a story. VHS 94 kind of attempted the same thing, but with less, definitely diminishing returns on that one. I won't go so far as to say awful. It ended terribly, I will say that, but it started,
the
with the whole
concept,
police raid.
the
That's what I
general
mean,
idea,
yeah, the general
idea is,
concept, yeah.
yeah, the idea is
But
fine,
then
but
once,
yeah, where it went.
exactly, once we get the reveal of those two women, are the masterminds, I just kind of lost it for the wraparound. But man, Viral and this one both have very oddball wraparounds I guess you can call it a wraparound because technically at least after the first three segments, we go back to the wraparound, but then after that we lose it, which is a weird decision on their part. It's kind of like the decision in Rec 3 to go from found footage to a full production movie about halfway through. That was very jarring to me. It freaked me the fuck out, and I remember not liking it the first time I saw it. I'm like, this is not what this movie is supposed to be, and I was very upset about it. And this movie, VHS 99, makes me kind of feel the same way, that this franchise deserves so much better than what we got, and ultimately I was mildly excited with some of the directors that were working on this, but yeah, ultimately no single story in this movie really hit for me. Varying elements from each story hit, but that's about it, sadly.
Yeah, that's what confused me about like not the very opening with it looked like maybe a stop motion toy stuff. It was the teenager stuff. Like I was like, what is this? I was like, is this like an actual segment? Is this a wraparound? And then they just kind of like went away from it, and I was like,
yeah, it's really odd. Because I was like Don, I was actually starting to get into the toy soldiers, kind of parody thing. In my notes, I put down, I called it Toy Soldiers 2, the Plastic Armageddon. And I was actually getting into that. But then out of nowhere, we get a douchey older brother taking the camera from his younger brother. And then we watch for the next 2 minutes, this idiot posing in front of a camera, in front of a mirror, a full length mirror, like he's at a gym or something. And of course, he's not nearly as big and cut as he thinks he is. But so it's hysterical to, sit there and watch him kind of complimenting himself. But it derails the whole thing. And like I said, that's where we lose our wraparound. There's no more wraparound after that. And that's upsetting to me. I'm a guy who likes his wraparounds with his anthology films. And yeah, man, Viral and this one had just the weirdest fucking wraparounds.
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you what Viral's was. It was just some guy chasing an ambulance for the whole episode.
Yeah, I barely even remember that.
Yeah, and then at the end, because they actually end the wraparound in VHS Viral, where he actually finally catches up to the ambulance, and it turns out it's like the center for where they're going to upload all of these viral videos to destroy the world, blah, blah, blah. It's just not good. So, yeah. I don't know. VHS, man, like, can we just go back to the old wraparounds? Like, in the first movie, we got those guys breaking into a house to retrieve a videotape that, they were specifically told to go get a videotape. That's acceptable. In the second segment, in the second VHS film, we get the man and woman who are breaking into a house, not looking for a video, but just looking, they're just robbing the place, basically. Like those, I know you don't want to rehash the same shit over and over again, just a different group of people breaking into somebody's house that has, 100 VHS tapes lying around. But man, a couple of these wraparounds are just not good. So yeah, sorry. I hate to say it because I love the franchise, but yeah, this wraparound, like I said, if they would have finished it, I think it might have been cool. If they'd have given us Toy Soldiers 2 for the duration of the movie, I think it would have added a little bit of levity to the whole thing, and we could have had a good laugh. But like I just found myself frustrated when the big brother took the camera away. I'm like, what the fuck? I'd rather watch Toy Soldiers than this douchebag posing in front of a mirror. But whatever. I guess they got to put something in there for the ladies.
That segment made me just think of American Pie, but a horror version.
Thank you.
From it.
Yep.
The whole time I was like, wow, this looks like that part of the story in American Pie.
Exactly. Oh man. Anything else we can say spoiler free?
I don't know. I think we're probably ready for spoilers here.
All right. Well, figure we'll just have a general discussion about the individual segments. We've already talked about the wraparound. Like I said, it's a kid with a camcorder filming his toy soldiers. He's doing like stop motion animation. he's doing some funny shit with them, cutting them in half. He's got like ketchup packets for blood and like what do you call it? Toy tanks running over the toy soldiers and then blood appearing underneath them. I'm looking at it and thinking, this isn't bad for a kid with a camcorder in his bedroom, Obviously this is VHS, so there's more than just a kid with a camcorder. But if I would have seen that, like a neighbor kid was like, "Oh, I made a movie, you want to watch it?" and that's what he gave me, I'd be like, "Dude, this is really good. Like, you should look into a career with this," depending on how old he is, of course. So that's our wraparound. I'm not going to bring it up again. Our first segment is called Shredding. We are basically introduced to a punk band named Rack, and they are planning on performing in a part of the catacombs where sometime before this there was a fire, and a band called Bitch Cat got they were the only casualties of this fire. Basically they got trampled by their own fans. Like all their fans got out, but they killed all 4 members of Bitch Cat. So Rack goes down to the catacombs, and of course it's a horror movie, so we know what we're getting. We get some some voices here and there. We get the kids playing pranks on their drummer, which by the 3rd prank I was just over it. I was just so sick of these kids. I'm like, I want to see these kids die. Like, literally, I wanted to see Ankar live and the other 3 die. But of course, as is expected, this band Rack, while they're in the catacombs kind of fucking around with their drummer, they eventually are attacked by the real Bitch Cat. And the design, I mean, they are very zombie-like, but like they're some of the coolest looking zombies I've seen probably since Tar Man. I actually really like the zombie design on Bitch Cat. I thought that was really fucking cool. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. It's easily the only redeemable part of the segment for me. I'm with you. I can't stand any of the 3 or the 4. I mean, Ankur is not bad. Yes. But the fact that he stupidly goes along and falls for some of the stupid pranks, I don't blame him, but it's just kind of like, okay, dude, come on. Why are you still hanging around with him?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing about this segment. I think once the actual like punk rock zombies show up, okay, cool. But everything before that is like, okay, what's going on? Hurry up, get to something.
It's literally
okay, it's here.
I mean, the idea is not bad. I kind of like the little I like the idea of the backstory. Like they're going to be like the only ones that have ever played this club since this incident, and you have the backstory with the fire and the tragedy, and like the small town little legend that's associated with it. That feels kind of realistic, and it kind of has like a little nostalgic bent to it. But yeah, it just takes too long for the ghost or the zombies or whatever the hell they are to show up, and then. Again, like, how in the hell is this being filmed? Like, why is anyone even holding a camera watching, these zombies go around rip your bandmates to pieces? Like,
yeah, what's funny is that at one point when the zombies first show up after they kill the first kid, the girl actually picks up the camera before she runs away. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Who picks up the camera? Don is right. One of the biggest problems with this movie is, why is anybody holding a camera? To hell and back. No fucking sense why that kid is still holding a camera. Like, literally. And I don't forget, folks, I am a found footage apologist. Like, I will try to find a reason why they're holding the camera. But with some of the segments in this one, I don't know what the point was. The Ozzy's Dungeon. Why does she have the son holding the camera the entire fucking time, even once the horror starts? Don's 100% right on that one. No excuse for holding a camera here.
Yeah.
I mean, you're literally in the catacombs. You're somewhere that you're not familiar with, where you're not safe, and literally the first thing she thought of is to grab the camera. Now, that proves to me that they aren't real musicians, because if it was me, I'd have grabbed my bass. That would have been the first thing I grabbed as I'm running out of there. Fuck the camera. I don't give a shit about that. I don't care if it's rented. It doesn't belong to me. I don't care. I'm saving my bass 100%. So, yeah.
Right. I mean, you always have the standby. The camera's got night vision. I mean, that's always like the standby. But I mean, even that's not even used here.
Nope.
I
No,
mean,
not at all.
yeah. I mean, to me, that's always been my standby. The camera's got night vision. You can at least use that. But yeah, even still, the idea that what goes on in here is being filmed. Yeah, that to me just takes it right after the just absolute insanity with the kids. I mean, I don't give two flying fucks about watching these kids skateboard and use like 90s teen slang.
Yep, exactly. And that's what a lot of these segments had. Like this one and the Gawkers, both of these segments had very long introductions with these, young douchey characters. And it's like, why are you forcing me to watch so much of these kids? Like you could literally give me a 30-second scene that'll establish that they're assholes. That's all I need. Instead, you're making me watch half a fucking segment, especially with the Gawkers. There's not much to that segment at all. Like once the creature.
Well, I mean, we'll get there, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, it's a problem not just in this segment, but throughout the film as a whole. It's just unfortunate that we're getting it in the first segment to get us off to a bad note.
Exactly. And then to pretty much finish off this segment, Bitch Cat, the zombie Bitch Cat, does eventually get their revenge against Rack. All four members of Rack, even like I was saying, Ankar was probably the only likable character. He was the only character who even prepared for the potential of running into the dead. Like he apparently, I don't know, maybe he's got like a bruja in his in his family, a wannabe witch, and she gave him some powder because he actually uses some kind of powder on one of the zombies, and it does seem to affect them, even though it doesn't take them out completely, because by the end of the segment, all four zombies are still there. And then the segment basically ends with the final member of the band that's still alive is the girl, and we end up seeing her getting attacked by two members of Bitch Cat, and they basically rip her to pieces, literally arms, legs, head, torso. They just basically rip it all into chunks. And then what they end up doing is creating rock star marionettes, as I put in my notes. Literally, the zombies made marionettes out of the members of Rack, and the final image of that segment is just them on stage, with all their separate parts held together with like wire or something. I'm not sure. These were some pretty industrious zombies, I gotta say. But yeah, I actually did kind of enjoy that final image, especially because I hated all four of those kids so much. Just to see their body parts kind of controlled by strings and shit, I thought that was funny. Rockstar marionettes. All right, so after that, we come back to our wraparound, more toy soldiers being attacked and killed off. Into our second segment, which is called the suicide bid. This is a pretty quick one. It's basically just a hazing story, though it does have elements of a revenge story. Basically, a girl, I forget her name, I don't care that much. She's basically rushing a sorority. She's a freshman. Anybody out there who's been to college knows what rush week is. It's basically when you rush all the different fraternities and sororities to try to find one to join that'll accept you. Or one that you really want to be a part of, whatever the case may be. So, like I said, we're introduced to a college student who, she's kind of, in the first scene, she's kind of shitty to her roommate. Like, her roommate is one of those girls that has no interest in a fraternity. She only cares about, like, schooling. And it basically gets made fun of because of that, because she wants nothing to do with sororities. Her roommate basically makes fun of her. She goes off to her sorority rush, and she does something called a suicide bid. And what a suicide bid is when you put all your eggs in one basket. In other words, you're only rushing one sorority or fraternity. The whole point of rush week at college is to go and try out for as many frats or sororities as you can, because they're not all going to accept you. You want to try to get accepted by a couple so that you could pick the one that you really want to go to. A suicide bid is basically where this woman only rushes one sorority, and if that sorority doesn't accept her, no other sorority will take her. Like, literally, she will not get to join a sorority if the one sorority that she wants to be a part of doesn't accept her. So kind of taking a weird chance, I guess, but there you go. We then are proceeded to the cemetery, a mortuary first before we actually go out to the cemetery proper, and this is where we get the backstory of Guillotine. Now, in the movie, I thought they were saying guillotine, as in the French beheading tool, but I turned on the subtitles, and it's actually Guillotine, Gilltine. Now, maybe it's a word play, but this creature has not been decapitated, so I'm not sure what kind of wordplay that would be, but whatever. Her name is Guillotine. Basically, she did a suicide bid for this same sorority, and the hazing ritual that they put her through was that they buried her alive in a coffin in a cemetery. They actually dug up a plot, put this person in a casket, buried them alive, and they were supposed to stay in there for 24 hours. Unfortunately, because of some turn of events that we weren't privy to, she ended up staying under there for over a week. And that when they finally dug her up, of course, she was dead. Because you can't survive in a coffin for a week, my friends. I can't even believe you can survive in there for 24 hours, but whatever. What do I know? So like I said, the sorority sisters take, the girl that's rushing, and they basically do the same challenge. They tell her, well, since this is a suicide bid, if you can do this challenge, then you're automatically in. And it's the same challenge as Guillotine. Be buried in a casket 6 feet under and stay there for 24 hours. They do also give you a camera. The sorority sisters actually gave the girl in the casket a camera. They claim it was so that they want to see her scared face. They want to see how scared she gets in there. Obviously, we know it's a found footage movie, so they have to throw a camera.
We need it for the movie.
Exactly. 6 cameras for everybody. So anyway, before she's buried, before the girl is buried, she's given a box. Well, she's given the camera, like I said, but then she's given a small box too. And one of the sorority sisters says, if you're about to pull, I forgot to mention, they do set up like a pulley system with a bell on top so that it's like her panic button. So, if she panics, they can take her out, but they've already warned her if she panics and doesn't stay the whole 24 hours, she's automatically omitted from contention. So like I said, they give her a box and they tell her, if you think you're going to pull the string, open this box and it'll help pull you through. Did anybody else believe that shit? Like, the instant they handed her that box, I'm like, no, don't even take the box with you. Honestly, though, I didn't think what was in the box was going to be in the box. I'll tell you what I thought. But we end up, as I've already mentioned, they bury this girl alive. Now, they don't actually fill in the plot. The casket is 6 feet under, but they don't actually fill the entire hole with dirt. All they do is they shovel in enough dirt in there to just cover up the top of it so that the girl inside believes that she's buried alive. But actually, there's only a couple of inches of dirt on the coffin. And of course, the sorority sisters are fucking with her. They tell her, before they locked her in the box, they tell her the story of Guillotine and how other sorority sisters that have taken this challenge since then have claimed to seeing Guillotine. Like, she'll actually, underground, she'll actually, scratch and knock at the side of the coffin. And the girl in the coffin is given the advice, don't let Guillotine know you're in there or she'll break in and kill you. And of course, it's just the girls tapping on the top of the box with a long staff, blah, blah, blah. The long and the short of it is, just as they're about to leave, it starts raining. And after it starts raining, the police show up, the campus police, I'm assuming. It might be local city police too, I don't know. But a police car shows up. It's raining heavily. The girls are like, shit, we can't stay here. If we get caught hazing, we're all going to get kicked out. So they all decide, okay, fuck it, we'll leave and come back. Now, mind you, it's raining, my friends, and it is a downpour. And her casket is not fully covered. There's only a couple of inches of dirt on it. So the inevitable happens. The hole starts to fill up with water because it's raining so hard. And water starts, getting into the coffin. Our girl inside starts panicking when water starts getting in. And then the top of the coffin, the lid of the coffin itself starts to crack from the weight of the water on top of it. She starts panicking, freaking out, and then she looks out the little window on top of the casket, and there is Guillotine. We see her for the first time. Very cool design. Very similar to the Grave Dancers. I don't know if anybody's seen the Grave Dancers, but the ghosts in that movie look a lot like Guillotine in this one. And I love that movie, so it makes sense that I like Guillotine too. I like the way she looked, just big white, just big bugged out white eyes, no pupils, no nothing, just, very demonic looking. And basically Guillotine gets into the coffin, grabs our girl, and then it fades to black. That's the end of the scene. So what we then see is somehow the camera that was in the coffin with the girl somehow gets out of the coffin and gets up on top on the ground, just above the hole. And then we see a fast forward of the next 5 hours and the water just building and building and building until finally it's 6 a.m. and the hole is completely covered in water. It's just anything that's down in there is just deader than shit. The girls come back. One of them, actually two of them, which I was kind of shocked about for sorority girls, like for good-looking, I assume rich sorority girls. Two of them have no problem jumping right into the muddy hole. And when the first one goes down in there, she says she's gone. There's nobody in the casket. It's empty. And then kind of the ringleader of the sorority sisters also jumps into the hole to kind of verify that. And they're like, yeah, she's gone. There's nobody in the casket. It's still buried underwater, obviously, but there's nobody down there. So they all decide to do what any, shitty college kids would do. They decide never to speak of this again and just, we never went out last night. We were all at the sorority house. That's what we're going to tell anybody who comes asking. And then basically what happens is the girls end up going home that evening and going to bed. But then literally seconds after they go to bed, all five of them, I forget if it was 4 or 5, I think it was 5 girls in total, the sorority sisters. All 5 of them wake up inside of an empty casket, of one of the plain wood caskets, just like they buried the first girl in. They're all buried in there. They all have a camcorder with them. So apparently Guillotine has access to a Radio Shack because she provided camcorders for everybody. And then basically we see all 5 of the girls, start to panic in sequence. They all start to freak out. And then finally we see our original girl crash into one of the caskets of the ringleader, if you will. And she basically says, I made a deal with Gilly. I told her if she would spare me, I would give her someone else instead. And I promised her the entire sorority. Because like I said, this is the sorority that actually is responsible for Guillotine's death, years ago. And literally that, basically we see the ringleader kind of turn around and there's one last shot of Guillotine right there behind her. Bing, bang, boom. That's the end of our second segment. As I said, I do like this one. It's tense. Obviously, I skipped the box altogether. Obviously, right before our first girl is about to pull on the string, the panic button, she decides to open the box like the sorority sister told her. And of course, inside, there's about a dozen big black spiders, just fucking big, nasty things. She's, of course, freaking out under there, which kind of starts the whole thing of the sorority sisters up top laughing at her and then poking at the casket and everything else. So blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that is the suicide bid. I don't actually have director and writer credits. So let's see. The suicide bid was directed
Johannes
by
Roberts.
That's it.
Johannes Roberts, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this one was kind of straight to the point at least, but I did kind of find it like, I know that the rest of the sorority girls wanted to get out of there because like the cops are showing up, but it's like, come on, girls. It's like, she's not going to survive this if you just leave. Like at some point, it's like you should have probably come back a lot sooner, or just like hid while the cops were like out there, and but waited nearby. Because like, what do you expect is going to happen if you leave someone in a coffin for that long?
Exactly. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. Obviously, they were condemning someone to death, but ultimately they got their comeuppance at the end. So yay.
It almost felt like a Tales from the Crypt segment.
It really did. A lot of these segments did. Like I said, these first 4 segments being all revenge stories with young casts, they just felt kind of the same to me, other than our next segment, which actually does take a little bit of a left turn halfway through the segment. All right, so after our second segment, we are back to our wraparound. And then they actually did you guys notice the homage to VHS 94? If you guys remember, the first segment of VHS 94 had to do with Ratma, the rat man monster living in the sewer. During this third part of the wraparound, we actually see the kid having his soldiers fight a giant rat monster. He just calls it a rat monster, but I'm like, oh, it's Ratma. Awesome. So there you go. There's your little reference to the last movie for you. And that leads us into our third segment, which is Ozzy'S Dungeon. This is definitely one that's I think is going to be very divisive. I can see how some people are going to like it because the first half is very different from the second half, but I can also see, kind of like Mike's point, where this segment really is too long. This segment could have almost been chopped in half, and we still would have gotten the gist of the story, you know. There's a part of the story where they're walking through a cavern, like a cave, for like 3 minutes. It's like, okay, just get there. This doesn't make any sense. So yeah. So Aussies Dungeon basically starts out, as I mentioned earlier, with it's like a Double Dare parody where like family members would, compete in physical challenges for, money and prizes, things like that. And what the concept of Aussies Dungeon is that if anyone is able to complete the final obstacle course, like you have to do different challenges throughout the episode just to be able to try the obstacle course at the end of the end. And then if you successfully traverse that obstacle course in the time that provided, which I think is 60 seconds, you get a wish granted. Basically, you are allowed into Aussies Dungeon and you are granted a wish. So, let's see. So at this point, we are watching a new episode of the show, and there's a little girl that we are following throughout this story. Was it Donna? I think her name was Donna or Diana. God damn it. Why can't I think of it? Stagehand. Maybe. Donna, yes, I was right. Okay, so Donna is our protagonist for this segment. She is, she's on the show. She's performing really well. She's completing all the challenges. And finally, when we get to the end of the episode, it's down to 2 kids, Donna and this kind of bully-looking white kid who looks way too big to be on this show, but whatever. And they're basically sent through this obstacle course at the same time. So not only do they have to beat their opponent, they have to finish the course in 60 seconds. What ends up happening is Donna ends up taking the lead. She's ahead of the kid. And then she's literally about to exit the final tunnel in the obstacle course. And somehow, I don't know if the white kid did it on purpose, because like I said, I watched it 3 times. It almost seems like the kid did do it on purpose, but basically Donna's leg gets caught somewhere near the exit of the tunnel and it breaks, but it breaks in the gnarliest fucking way ever. Like it's not a compound fracture, but it's an open wound. Like it's completely open. It's almost unrealistically open, but I fucking loved it. I thought it was a cool leg break. And then, of course, the show kind of ends, or that particular episode of the show ends with Donna's family members yelling and crying and, everything else, while Donna is basically writhing on the ground saying, oh, can you stop the show? Please stop the show. But, of course, the cameramen are still right on top of her, showing her mangled leg. Like, I don't know what the fuck kind of kid show this was. Like, the very first challenge of this show was a balloon popping challenge where they literally put a balloon, they taped the balloon to the chest of every kid, and then they gave every kid a helmet with fucking elk horns on it, fucking antlers, real ones. I'm not talking plastic. I mean like fucking antlers. And then they basically say, pop that balloon. So the intention is for the kid to put their head down, run towards another kid and pop the balloon on their chest. As you can see, half the kids in the segment are all hurt. They're out. It doesn't get nearly as gnarly as you would think it might, but, just to see these kids kind of writhing on the ground, it might bring some, emotion to somebody. For me, I just found it funny. So, yeah. So like I said, Donna and her family they've left the show, and it is now it's got to be at least 2 or 3 years later, because Donna was a little girl during the episode, and now she's a legit teenager, a very goth teenager, I might add. She kind of looked cute, actually. But anyway, it's a couple of years later, and what we see is the original show, the original talk show host, by the way, played brilliantly by Stephen Ogg, who you guys would know him from The Walking Dead. He also did the voice of Trevor in Grand Theft Auto 5. Just absolutely love this guy. But he plays the game show host on this one. And like I said, when the second half of the segment starts, we see that he's been stripped naked and he's in a dog cage, like he's in one of those small kennel type cages. And then as the camera pans out, we see that it's Donna's family. We see Donna in a wheelchair, her mother, her father, her brother, and they've got this guy in a cage. So obviously another revenge story. And, basically exactly what you would expect. The family puts together their own version of the obstacle course in their basement. They threaten him with acid. The mom, who was actually pretty funny, I will say, I thought the mom was very entertaining in this segment. Just right from the start, she's very emotional. At one point, she almost has a heart attack, but I can't stop laughing because it's kind of funny. Yeah. So.
Yeah. As the more of the story of this one goes, it's like, damn, who isn't a monster in this segment?
Exactly. Everyone is a monster in this one, except, well, I'll save that for the end. Okay, so as I've already set up, the family has kidnapped the game show host. It's multiple years later. The show's been off the air, but apparently it took this family this long to get this elaborate revenge scheme put together. They make him go through the first challenge, the balloon challenge, but they don't even bother putting a balloon on his chest. They just have the little brother put on a helmet with a bunch of like butcher knives on top, and he just does a bull charge right at the host, stabs him through the midsection. It's bleeding so profusely. I thought that was going to be enough to kill him. I mean, a lot of blood was coming out of that wound, but he survives, and they threaten him with the acid. Like I said, the mom has a small glass bottle of acid that she pours a little bit of it on the ground to show him that it's real acid. And she's constantly threatening him. Basically, every time he says, what if I refuse to go through the tunnel? She just kind of shakes the bottle of acid in his face, and he instantly relents. So, of course, he goes through the actual tunnel, not the tunnel, but the obstacle course. They make the obstacle course just way, way nasty. There's like a pool of piss at the bottom of the slide. There's a tunnel with actual feces on it that he's like rooting through, looking for a flag, just like on Double Dare, if you guys remember. And finally, he gets to the end of the obstacle course, and his head comes out of the tunnel exit just as the timer expires. So I'm wondering, are they going to count that? But of course, this is a revenge story, so we know where it's going. The mom instantly says, "Oh, you're just a couple of seconds too late. I'm so sorry." They pick him up. They pick up the host. They tie him back up to the pole. And mom takes a syringe, a fucking surgical syringe, not a little dinky one of those big ass ones. She fills it with the acid, and she's literally about to poke it in his fucking eye and, depress it and put all that fucking acid, which I would imagine would be fairly instant death. But then just before she injects, he says, I can grant you your wish. I can grant you your wish. And obviously the mom doesn't believe him. She's like, shut the fuck up. You're just talking to try to, save yourself. And he's like, no. I know Ozzy. No wish was ever granted, and they're still there. And the mom's talking about, like, it's been off the air for 2 years. How can it still be there? And he said, I'll take you there. And so that's exactly what happens. He takes them back to the original set. The set that looks abandoned. It looks like it's been a couple of years since anybody's used it. And then he gets up to the entrance of, Ozzy's Dungeon, which no one's ever seen because no one's ever completed the obstacle course. Basically, over the course of the entire show, no one ever won the final prize. And that's why, I would imagine that's why the family thought the game was rigged, so that no kid could possibly win it. And then, of course, because of the injury to Donna's leg, they were all pissed off, blah, 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 blah. What we end up seeing is we see the entrance to Ozzy's Dungeon, which we've seen in the past from the episode of the show that we watched earlier. And when the dungeon opens, his co-host, the host's co-host, like spokesmodel, whatever you want to go with, is still there. Like, she's still standing guard years after the show's gone off the air. So instantly, we're like, oh shit, there might be something to this. They start going through this cave, this series of caves, which this is what kind of dragged. It's like I said, it felt like it was a solid 2 to 3 minutes of just walking around a cave, and it just really started to irk me after a while. But then what we end up getting is when they get to the end of the tunnel, they get to Ozzy, and we actually see Ozzy. Ozzy is basically this ridiculously large woman, like bedridden, like she couldn't possibly walk. She looks like she's like 800-900 pounds, maybe more. And the show host says to Donna, okay, go ahead and make your wish. And then he says to her, make it count. Obviously she's going to be the first person to get their wish granted. That was a cool thing about that I did kind of like about this segment, is that, they made it sound like they were going to grant a kid's wish, as in, Make-A-Wish Foundation type stuff. But they were being literal. Like, this creature will literally grant the kid whatever they wish for. We see Donna lean over towards Ozzy and starts to whisper something into her ear. Yeah, I said her. It is a woman. It is
she kind of looks like that large thing from Blade that got the UV ray.
I was actually going to say that. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's
very
what it
similar.
reminded me of.
Yeah, definitely. So we see Donna lean over, make the wish, and then suddenly we see the midsection of Ozzy as she's laying in the bed rip open, just completely tear open. And we see some kind of Lovecraftian nightmare basically pop out of the wound. Basically it's got tentacles, it's got glowing red eyes. It's mildly a humanoid form, but like I said, with tentacles and, very gnarly looking. And then the first thing we see is the game show host's face melt off. Like, he puts his hands on his face, and when he pulls his hands away, his face comes off with it. So yeah, his face is melting. But then suddenly the creature turns towards Donna's family, the mother, the father, and the little brother, and then does the exact same thing to them. Fucking melts their fucking faces off. How brother is still holding the camera up at this point is beyond me, but there it is. And just as the segment is ending, we see the camera pan towards Donna, and she's got this like sly, evil grin on her face. So, yeah, apparently Donna was sick of her family's shit and took them out. Now, my question is, do you think that Donna never wanted to be a part of this revenge scheme, that it was all her family and that she was just sick of them pushing it on her? Or do you think that it goes back even farther? Maybe Donna never wanted to be an actress or a personality, a celebrity of any kind, but her mother was constantly pushing it. Like, that was the biggest thing that mom was pissed off about, was that after Donna hurt her leg, she lost her chance at stardom. She's now got this nasty looking leg that, I don't understand why you can't just wear pants, but whatever. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking either Donna never wanted to be a celebrity and she's been wanting to do this to her family the whole time, or it was the revenge plan where maybe she was just like, I just want to be done with it. I don't want any part of this, but the family maybe kept pushing it on her, because Donna never smiled once in the second half of this segment. She always has this sullen look on her face, sometimes vaguely angry, sometimes vaguely sad, but just never happy. So, yeah, there you go. I don't know how Donna worded her wish specifically since we don't hear it, but that's my interpretation anyway. I don't know if you guys maybe have a different one, but
Maybe
that's
her wish is she wanted to be free or something. So
yeah, that's what I was figuring.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll eliminate everybody. But yeah, I
I'll free
kind of
you
have a
and
feeling
the
that at the least, I think she didn't probably want to be a part of the revenge plot, and then it was also like the overbearing family of like trying to force her into being like in the entertainment industry. So it's probably all encompassing.
Exactly. I'm wondering what happens to Donna now. I'm one of those people who wonders what happens when horror movies end, because Donna is basically, she's stuck in a wheelchair and now she has no family. Like, is she just going to stay with Ozzy in the dungeon and just live there? I don't know. This is the shit that my mind thinks of when I'm watching horror. Sorry, folks. All right. So after Aussies Dungeon, we go back to the wraparound, and that's where we get the final little bit of the wraparound where, as I mentioned, the kid who's filming the stop motion toy soldiers gets the camera taken away from him by his older brother. We see him posing in front of the camera for a few minutes, and then we go to our fourth segment, which is called The Gawkers. This is the segment that I have the most issues with. Like, I feel like this segment is just, I feel like it's unfinished. Like, I don't think they actually finished it. Not just from a story standpoint, but even the effects. Like, I thought the effects even didn't look that great, but, you know, that's just me. So what we get with The Gawkers is basically another story of kids being stupid, you know, being vapid little empty-headed kids going around skateboarding, blah, blah, blah. We get a nice little piece of foreshadowing here, because in one scene early on, the kids find like a piece of shed skin that looks like snake skin, but it's like impossibly big. Like it shouldn't, like, you know, it would almost be like the snake from Anaconda, from that stupid movie that I actually love, but whatever, it's still a stupid movie. So like I said, they find this piece of shed skin on the beach. One of the kids picks it up, but they don't really make a big deal about it. They just kind of look at it, throw it around for a little bit, and then go. So that's your first bit of foreshadowing. And then we find out that these kids all live in the same neighborhood as this single woman. This, you know, very trophy wife looking, you know, blonde, tall, statuesque, beautiful, you know, blah, blah, blah. Your traditional, you know, like I said, just beautiful blonde MILF, if you will, excuse the term. And, you know, she lives alone. So the kids are basically, you know, they want to try to do something not to this woman necessarily, but, you know, they want to try to see in her house. So what ends up happening is the woman buys a new iMac. And this is in the days when webcams weren't included in your computers. So she actually bought her iMac and a webcam, but she didn't know how to set up the webcam. She ends up making friends with the younger brother, the kid who's not really part of the group of douchebags. You know, like I said, he's the younger brother who doesn't get included in things. He ends up developing a relationship with the woman, not romantic, obviously, but, you know, just like being friendly with her. And then eventually he agrees to install her webcam because the kid is like, you know, tech savvy, you know, for 1999 anyway. At this point, the older brother has the idea of, can you put spyware on her computer, set up her webcam, and then install spyware so that we can kind of watch her, so that we can see the shit that she does in her bedroom. The little brother obviously is kind of standoffish, doesn't really want to do it. He's worried about the implications, blah, blah, blah. But of course, it's a little brother being pressured by a big brother and his big friends. So, of course, the little brother relents. The night comes where he has to go and install the webcam. He goes across the street. He installs the webcam. We see him install like a flash drive into the Mac. And that's, I guess, the spyware. And he successfully gets the spyware on her computer and then just, you know, leaves for the evening. Ends up going back home. And this is 99, mind you, so it's not like you can just turn on a program and you're instantly looking at this woman. Like, this kid had to write, you know, he had to write some code. Finally, he gets the spyware. He gets his computer to connect with the beautiful woman's computer, and now they can see her. And they basically are watching her. She's on the computer, actually using it, looking up things, blah, blah, blah. They can't see what she's looking at on her screen. They can only see her. And then at one point, the woman stands up and we see that she starts to undress, which of course makes these little 15-year-old douchebags ultra excitable. First, she takes off her shirt. She still has a bra on. Obviously, as I said, very well built, very beautiful woman. Then she takes her bra off and, we get bare boobs. The kids are obviously excited. The kid who actually installed the spyware, the little brother, he's kind of standing off to the side because he doesn't really want to be a part of it, even though he did this. It was his doing. He doesn't want to really, be one of those perverts who's watching her. So this woman is now standing topless in front of her computer, and she's kind of stretching. She's stretching her arms. She's stretching her shoulders. And then at one point, her left arm bends backwards. It bends in the wrong direction. And we hear a crack. We hear the classic bone cracking sound. She does the same thing with her other arm, and suddenly her arms are kind of contorted. They still look human, but they're not in a human position. They're like cracked and contorted in a weird way. Suddenly, she reaches for her head and she pulls her hair off. It's a wig. It's not like she's literally peeling her scalp off necessarily. And then when the wig comes off, the guys are like, oh, shit. Oh, she has a wig. They're planning on making fun of her, blah, blah, blah. But then literally, just as they're about to make fun of her for wearing a wig, we get our reveal. And what we see is snakes start to come out of her head. And my friends, we have a Gorgon story, or Medusa, if you'd like to use her by name. I don't know that this is actually the Medusa. That's why I say Gorgon, because there were more than one of those types of creatures. It's just Medusa is the famous one. So yeah, it turns out this woman is a Gorgon, and she's got snakes for her hair, and she can fly. She actually sprouts wings at one point. And once she realizes, she looks out her bedroom window and she looks right at the kids who are across the street looking at her. She realizes what they're doing, and we see her kind of literally fly out of her house. And then we hear her land on the kids' house. Like they're all in their bedroom, and we can hear her on the roof kind of walking around. Suddenly, she smashes through the wall, literally just smashes right through and attacks one of the boys, basically pins him down on the bed and just starts peeling chunks of him off. I'm not sure if she actually dismembered him, but I mean, we hear ripping and tearing. We see blood splurting on the wall. So she's basically tearing his ass apart. After she finishes with the first boy, the other two of them run out of the bedroom. One of them is kind of frozen in shock, and it's unfortunate for him because as soon as he kind of comes out of his shock, he tries to run away, but she catches up to him. We don't actually see what she does to the second kid. We just kind of hear the sound effects. But then we get to the bottom of the stairs where it's the two brothers that are left, the older brother and the younger brother. And basically, she starts to walk down the stairs, and she's all Medusa'd out, topless, like I said, the snakes, everything. And the younger brother basically starts to apologize, telling her, Sandra, I'm so sorry. We never meant to hurt you. And then she does the roar, her eyes glow, and we see the little brother slowly turn to stone. Yes, his hands first, and then he actually completely turns to stone. The big brother is frozen in fear, still holding the camera, of course, after little brother has been turned into a goddamn statue. And then Medusa walks about halfway down the stairs and then looks at the kid. And then I start thinking, wait a minute, if they're recording this, does everyone who's watching this turn to stone? In their world, obviously. I'm not talking about the real world, but in their world, if someone saw this video, do they turn to stone? These are the questions I have, folks. So anyway, she does the same thing to the big brother, turns him into stone. And he turns into stone while still holding the camera. So the camera is actually still up in position. She gives one final roar into the camera and then fade to black. That is the end of the Gawkers. And then, like I said, I liked it. I mean,
It
It's
was a little
quick.
long, but I like the premise and I like where it went. I mean, sorry,
Yeah,
no, it
like,
wasn't
this
long.
is
I just meant they pretty much got to it.
well, they still didn't get to it as quick as they could have. Like this segment is probably twice as long as it needs to be because they had to set up how douchey these kids were, which, I just assume all kids are douchey. I don't need that set up in a movie, honestly.
Yeah, I
just
mean
assume it.
they're teenage boys. What do you kind of
Exactly.
expect in that situation? We didn't need all the exposition or the extra time. Just we know what's gonna happen. Just get to it. I mean, not the
Yeah.
reveal, but we know what they're going to do with the camera and all that webcam and stuff.
Exactly. Yep. All right. So as I said, there's no more wraparound at this point. So segment 4 leads directly into segment 5, and this is To Hell and Back, directed by Joseph and Vanessa Winter. I'm sorry, I didn't give you any of the directors. Let's go down the list real quick while I'm thinking about it. Ozzy's Dungeon was directed by Flying Lotus. Shredding was directed by Maggie Levin. The Gawkers was directed by Tyler McIntyre. Suicide Bid by Johannes Roberts. And then, like I said, To Hell and Back, directed by Joseph and Vanessa Winter. So not as big a names as we're kind of used to in the VHS franchise, but, at the same time, I don't mind young directors getting a chance. It's just none of the segments here really impressed me, unfortunately. So what are you going to do? All right, so our final segment, To Hell and Back, starts out with a seance. We actually see, not a seance, I'm sorry, but it's a ritual of some kind. Basically, we see some witches or a cult, however you want to look at it. They're in black robes, and they're talking about summoning a demon named Ukaban, right? Yeah, Ukaban. And this one girl, this one member of the cult has kind of volunteered herself to be the human vessel for this demon. So she's literally volunteering to be possessed so that they can give this demon an earthly form and worship him, I guess, up close. I don't know. All right, so basically they start the ritual. They lay the girl down on a table. They start reciting the magic words, if you will. They start repeating Ukaban, Ukaban, Ukaban. And then what happens is a demon appears in the room, but it's not the demon that they summoned. It's not Ukaban. It's just some little shitty demon that apparently they've had experience with, because one of them even says, it's him again. We got that guy again. So basically, the two kids that we're following, I say kids, but I don't think they're all that young. They're in their 20s, definitely. But basically, it's a camera crew that's kind of been hired to record the ritual. What ends up happening is they end up walking up to the altar where the girl, the volunteer, is laid out. And as they walk up to it, the demon, the unwanted demon, reaches out from underneath and grabs both of the kids, the cameraman and the interviewer. And the screen goes black for a second, and then it comes back up, and we're somewhere completely different. It's pretty obvious we're in hell, because as I said earlier, this is a pretty, color by numbers vision of hell. You've got a lot of darkness, a lot of red sky when the lightning goes off. We see a big, what I can only assume is Satan type demon in the background, like a gigantic one. So yeah, it's fairly obvious our boys are in hell, and they realize that they're in hell. They actually make the connotation that, shit, I think we're in hell. And then, like I said, we get a lot of the same shit we always get, body parts kind of strewn around, different creatures, walking around, very Nightbreed, if you will. They run into one person who has no face. They run into another woman who actually has like a little tiny Godzilla body. It's weird. Imagine like a 2-foot Godzilla with a human head. And that's what this little person looked like in hell. We run into a couple of a winged creature at one point. We see like a winged demon standing up on the top of one of the hills, looking down, blah, blah, blah. So, these kids, these two guys are basically traversing hell. They're basically going through, trying to figure out what the hell they're doing, what happened. Eventually, they do figure out that shit. When they sent that demon back to hell, it was touching us, and it must have sent us back as well. So literally, these two boys are alive, but somehow in hell. And like I said, they meet multiple little characters, but then they finally meet someone who actually speaks to them, and her name is Mabel. And I'm not even 100% sure what Mabel is, because obviously Mabel's been there for a while. She doesn't feel like in danger. Like, she actually is kind of a boss bitch. She's telling the guys, why are you yelling? Shut up, something's going to hear you. Or at one point, one of the guys yells at her and she's like, why would you speak to me in this way? Like, instantly getting defensive. I actually did kind of like Mabel. She's got a very raspy voice, like she's been breathing brimstone fumes for a long time. She's got a lot of damage on her body, scrapes and boils and shit like that. But when the boys basically explain to her what happened and they mention the ritual and the book, Mabel instantly is like, ooh, who are they trying to summon? Who are they trying to summon? And one of the boys remembers it was Ukaban. Ukaban was the name of the demon. And Mabel is like, oh, I know where Ukaban lives. I can take you there. And then maybe when they pull Ukaban out of hell, you can go with him back up there. So, fucking brave to go out hunting a demon in hell, but that's what they decide to do. They end up going to Ukaban's domain, if you will. You can't really say house in hell, but, his little system of caves. And we can see that it's basically like 2 minutes to midnight, Iron Maiden reference. It's like a couple of minutes before midnight, and, the boys are like, we know that they're going to perform the ritual at exactly midnight, because earlier in the segment, the leader of the cult basically says, we're going to do the ritual at exactly midnight on 1999 New Year's Eve, exactly midnight, because that's when the veil between the land of the living and the land of the dead is the thinnest. Kind of the same thing we've heard about Halloween for years, but apparently it also happens at the end of the millennium. So, like I said, the boys end up getting to Ukaban's place. They dispatch a couple of demons, which, this is what kind of irks me about this segment. Like, these guys are practically professional demon hunters by the time this segment's over. They were just scared like kids at first, and then literally within 5 minutes, they're killing demons. So, little grain of salt there you got to take it with. But they end up finding Ukaban. They successfully get to him. Just before they get to Ukaban, right at midnight, we see Mabel get taken out by the winged demon that we saw earlier in the segment. Basically lands right on her, stabs her through the back with like a lance of some kind. And just before she dies, she yells at them, don't forget to put my name in the book. Basically, the book that the cult is using. Mabel apparently isn't a well-known demon or entity, whatever you want to call her. So she actually asks, when you go back, put my name in that book. I deserve to be in there. What ends up happening is the plan actually works. Go figure. Right at midnight, the boys rush Ukaban. They've already killed off all his toadies that he had around him. They rush Ukaban. They basically touch him right at midnight, and they're set back. But, of course, it's a horror movie, so there's a twist. One of the boys does come back as himself in his own body, but the other boy, the one who was holding the camera, is inside of the volunteer's body. Like, she's talking, but it's his voice coming out. Instantly, the witches realize, shit, that's not the demon we wanted. That's somebody else. They don't even take the time to find out that it's the kid from earlier. They literally are like, once they hear his voice, they're like, oh, it's not Ukaban. And they just fucking stab him. Just stab the girl to death, killing our cameraman, obviously. Our one survivor turns around to try to escape, but one of the cult members is there waiting for him with a shovel, smacks him in the face with the shovel. We see a big spurt of blood. No idea why this guy's still holding the camera, but again, these segments are very weird when it comes to the camera. Basically, just before our last kid dies, he takes the book, which is sitting on the floor at this point, and with his own blood, he writes Mabel's name into the book. And then the segment ends, making you think it's the end of the movie. We go through all the credits, and then we do have an end credit sequence. Now, it's not video, it's just audio. And what it is the cult members Just like earlier in the segment when they were chanting Ukaban's name over and over again, now they're chanting Mabel's name because Mabel's name appeared in blood in the book. And I don't think any of them noticed the kid actually do it. So they probably thought there was some kind of, demonic intervention. And Mabel is now the one that they worship. So yeah, they've abandoned Ukaban, and this is probably what Mabel wanted. This is probably why she wanted to be in that book, so that potentially she could be, brought back to the Earth realm or whatever. So, and that's VHS 99, my friends. Just incredibly lackluster. I think we actually gave some of these segments more credit than they deserve, but what can we say? It's not 94. I don't even know what to say after that. It's not 94.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't even bring back any wraparound at the end. It just straight cut to credits after the segment. I was a little surprised.
Yeah.
Especially if you start with it, because I could see the justification for the wraparound disappearing in the middle of the movie, but not even bringing it back. There was a very tiny thing at the end. I think at the end of the credits with the toy, but nothing significant.
Yeah, the Mabel thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta listen to me talk, Mike.
Yeah, just because you have yourself on mute doesn't mean nothing else is going on.
But yeah, I mean, what can we say, folks? It's still VHS, so I'll still watch it. I may never watch this entry again unless I have to for a show, but if it comes to just watching it for enjoyment, I'll stick to 1, 2, and 94. Those are solidly the best ones.
So the one thing I was going to say earlier, now I was going to say this, and we can still do it now. When 1 came out, 2 came out immediately after, right? The year after or so?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so the one thing I was saying is that because 2 was rushed and very few tend to like 2 over 1, do you think because there was the layoff between Viral and 94, with 94 being good, did rushing 94 and 99 result in 99 being weaker?
Kind of. I think you're backwards on 2 and 3. 2 is the good one.
Oh, 2 is the good one? Okay.
Yeah, 2 is the good one. 3 is Viral. That's the one that's
I said I haven't seen anyone.
Yeah, because when Viral released, it was kind of thought of that was going to wrap up the franchise, right? I think
exactly.
94 was kind of a big surprise, they decided to do a new one where I think Viral, it wasn't immediately after 2, but it was soon enough to where okay, it's going to be a trilogy. But yeah, I think I do think between 94 and 99, it was a short amount of time where they could have just rushed this to hey, let's, on the success of 94, which was mostly well received, they're okay, let's throw another one out there. Now coming on the heels, before this one even released, we got the announcement of what, 85 is it going to be?
I think it's 85. I think it's 85.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is funny because I know they're playing around with the years now, but it's okay, it's starting to not even matter. Okay, well, we already know it's going to be VHS beta, unless they try to do a beta thing. But I mean, other than
the original title of VHS 2 was SVHS, Super VHS, for those who remember SVHS, the very short-lived format that literally probably didn't even last a year. But yeah. So when it was first announced, it was announced as SVHS. I still have the poster. But then they just changed it to VHS 2. They're going to run out of years eventually. The one thing I will say, though, is I do like how they keep up with, they're real meticulous on references to the year. There's an Ace Ventura reference in this movie, VHS 99. Totally makes sense. I think there's another reference, and they do mention mobile phones in this one. Obviously, in 99, cell phones weren't commonplace. A lot of people still had them, but obviously smartphones weren't around yet. But it was kind of cool to see a character in here actually have one of those big portable phones, like we had in the late 90s that most people probably never used, but my mother had one, so I remember it distinctly. But so hopefully VHS 95, I mean, we'll probably get, some Nightmare on Elm Street references.
We're definitely going to get a couple classic horror series, because we're going to have a Jason one. We're probably going to have a Michael one.
I wouldn't be surprised, yep.
Yeah, I wonder if they ever decide to go next era and do a DVD or something. Because I thought with 99 they might kind of flirt with the technology kind of in that transitional period, because 99, the early 2000s was kind of that interesting period where things were starting to get digital versions. We weren't completely in an all digital media world, but there was definitely the early pinnings of it's, you kind of had a choice, okay, yes, you can still do stuff on videotape, but hey, there's this new technology too. And I was kind of wondering if they would do a little more of that.
Well, that's viral. That's what VHS viral was, yeah.
Well,
I mean, Mike, do you remember there was no cameras in VHS viral? They were all using cell phones.
I'm saying
VHS viral was a more modern day entry. It's not set in the 80s or 90s. They don't actually tell you what year it is.
But viral was more advanced, because in the early 2000s there weren't video cell phones. I'm talking about this specific.
Right. I'm just saying that VHS viral didn't have. It's the only one that didn't have a specific year. I think VHS viral was meant to be taken as present day. So it came out in 2014. So I just assumed it was 2014, because like I said, the kids had GoPros. We didn't have GoPros in '99, so that's kind of what I'm trying to compliment the franchise, saying that they do their homework when it comes to items that they talk about that are year specific. Like I said, the Ace Ventura reference. There was at least one other reference to the year. I thought I wrote it down. Gore Demons. Shit, I almost swear I wrote it down. I forgot to mention Catch That Meat. Catch That Meat was fucking gross. Oh god, fucking raw chicken. Yay.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for VHS 99. Let's go and find out what new material we can tell the listeners to listen to. So, Venom, do you have anything?
All right, so No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts, episode 12. The real episode 12 is officially out. On that episode, Derek, Don, and myself take a look at 2006's Cemetery Gates, a first-time watch for me, so check that episode out. That's currently available. The main show, obviously, we kind of took the month of October off to take care of our other, October duties that we always do. The main show will be back sometime early November, and I think we'll be looking at Derek's picks on that one. And let's see what else. The Crystal Lake Gift Shop, episode 2 is still the latest episode, with the lovely Lacey Lou as our guest on that one, where we talk about episode 2 of the Friday the 13th series, and that episode was called The Poison Pen. And I think that's just about everything I got, Mike.
All right.
I guess I could.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I guess I could speak because all three of us were talking about how we had guest spots on Cut to the Chase lined up for October. Unfortunately, October just got away from all of us, and the three of us basically did not make our appearance on Cut to the Chase. So we will be back for 12 Days of Chasemas. To kind of make up, and she's even given us the option of picking our movie, which is nice. So that's good, because I was not looking forward to watching Hubie Halloween. It might have been great, I don't know. I just hate Adam Sandler with a fiery passion. So yeah, I wasn't looking forward to watching that, but hopefully we'll have something.
Not great.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. When it came out last year, I would have heard something from somebody. Somebody in the community would have said, hey, that Hubie Halloween wasn't bad, check it out. But nope, no one ever said that. So when I was assigned that movie this year, Yeah, one of my testicles definitely went back into my body when I heard that title, because I was not looking forward to watching and then talking about that movie. As much as I love Dan and Lacey, and I genuinely do love them, it wasn't a movie I was looking forward to watching. But because October got out of hand, I got out of it. Yay.
At least you knew what movie you were going to watch. I still never did know.
That's true, yeah. I feel bad for Mike, because Mike actually got a good movie. You know, that sounded like a fun movie to talk about.
Yeah, it is what it. I mean, I was okay either way. I mean, it was a busy month for me too. If they would have like come to me with a couple dates, I probably would have made it happen. But I wasn't like pressing to do it just because I was busy too.
Yeah, October, November is really busy for me, not just with horror, but also with poker. For those who don't know, I am a avid poker player, and I'm a member of a couple of different poker leagues. So October, November is usually the end of our season. So I never, ever want to miss any games during that month. So, you know, I might miss some early in the season. It's a point-based system, you know. With every event, you earn a certain amount of points, and then the top 20 point getters get into the final tournament, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, along with October being incredibly busy with all the horror watches, poker does also kind of take over whatever free time I have. Hence why it took me 2 weeks to edit multiple shows this month.
All right, Don, what do you got?
Yeah, as mentioned, Creature Comforts, that is available on, I think you have it on the network, right? The main
It's
No
up,
More Room.
yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that is available. As mentioned again, the Cut to the Chase guest spot is no longer happening, but stay tuned for the next appearance on the 12 Days of Chasemas series, which I'm kind of looking forward to. And as usual, the first season of Horror Countdown is available on all podcatchers and even on YouTube. So go ahead and check that out while I still take my break and prepare for season 2 launching in the new year.
All right, cool. As far as I go, nothing that hasn't already been mentioned. So just check out the No More Room in Hell either YouTube channel or the group page on Facebook. So you should be able to find links to everything there, or Dark Discussions Network.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I guess, 3 spots to find the links now.
Yep.
And other than that, no theatrical release, I think, this week. So we'll be digging around, looking around VOD for something. There's lots of options.
Let me give you a bonus review for a movie that did come out in theaters this week, but because it came up against Dark Glasses and VHS 99, there was no chance we were going to look at it. And that, of course, is Pray for the Devil, exorcism movie that just released in theaters last Friday. And my short and quick review is it's the most cookie-cutter, basic exorcism movie you've ever seen. Literally, you could play exorcism bingo with this movie and fill your card halfway through the movie. It's just everything, every beat, everything that you're used to in exorcism movies is all covered here. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. It's just an average movie that, you know, if you miss it, you're not missing much. So there you go. Quick bonus review.
Yeah, that's what I got from the trailer, and I probably would have still seen it, but since Dawn in 3D came out the same weekend, I was like, well, if I can only go see one thing, that's what I'm seeing. So
yeah, sounds like a
what
good
happened.
choice.
Oh, definitely. Oh, and by the way, I will not. I'm not too proud to say that when the Dawn of the Dead title card came up in 3D, I did tear up a little bit. You guys don't understand. This is my favorite zombie movie of all time. I absolutely adore Dawn of the Dead. And when that title card came up in 3D, it was weird. It was like being reunited with an old friend. And yes, like I said, a tear or two came out. I'll admit it. And it was so goddamn good, too, by the way.
Yeah.
If you didn't get a chance to see it, I'm sorry. You obviously missed it. I don't think it's in theaters anymore, but that was a goddamn experience.
What cut did they do?
The extended
Theatrical.
American cut. Yeah, not the Argento cut.
Okay.
It was
Oh,
the
yeah,
extended American cut, the 2 hour and 20 minute version.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
but they didn't do the Argento cut, the one that's like almost 3 hours or whatever now.
No, the Argento cut's two. The Argento cut's two.
Oh, it's only 2? What am I thinking
I thought
of?
the
there was another
Argento cut
Cannes
is
cut.
shorter than the
Cannes
extended cut.
The Cannes cut's
Oh.
the short one.
That's probably what I'm thinking.
See,
of,
I thought
yeah,
it was the theatrical cut because I
No,
thought the
that's-
director's cut or the extended has that confrontation on the roof before they take off. The SWAT,
I'm.
like some.
I think I'm getting the names.
don't-
I think I'm getting the names mixed up, but I think it's the Cannes cut, the director's cut, and then the Argento cut.
Yeah, definitely wasn't the Argento cut because I'm familiar with that one and the different mall
the
scenes
Argento
'cause they
cut's
did
2
some
hours.
different scenes.
Yeah, the Argento cut's 2 hours long, and it has Goblin on the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's the main way to tell them apart. But I still
you-
don't know the difference between the two American versions.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was a
It was an
goddamn
experience.
experience.
Yeah,
That's something I'll take with me forever. Like if I had grandkids, that's a story I would tell. Oh man.
All right, cool. Well, yeah. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, a little later this week, but we should be back to our regular release schedule next week. So, until then, thank you everybody for listening to Fresh Cuts. Catch you in a week. Let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
If VHS 85 isn't good, I'm starting a fire.
Peace.